Hello.
Hello, welcome to Hitbox. I'm Marley.
And I'm Scruffy.
And we're doing a slightly abbreviated one today. There was some trouble getting into the room, but we are all right now.
Yes.
So we're going to get started right away to make sure we squeeze in as much as possible.
Yes. So our theme today is video game locations.
Shout out to Elodie for suggesting this one.
Yes. And it's just going to be about some of our favorite locations in any video game, just favorite locations to be in, to explore, and why.
And this is a sort of open topic. We might come back to it in a later episode. But yeah, we've picked a few really interesting ones for you, and we're really excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
Scruffy, would you like to start?
Sure. So the first location that I chose is kind of a general one because it's procedurally generated. I have been getting back into Minecraft, and one of the more interesting biomes that can generate in Minecraft, because it creates these massive, just different types of environments, that biomes, like mountains and swamps and wetlands and deserts and things like that. My favorite are the mountains, especially when they tower up to the maximum possible height that can be generated in Minecraft. I have a playthrough currently where I've stumbled upon this gigantic dueling peaks kind of mountain where it looks very much like just a regular sloped mountain up to the very maximum that the game can build by itself. And then in the center of it is this gigantic ravine that divides both halves of the mountain.
So it is like dueling peaks.
Yes, and it goes not only down to the ground, but down to the very bottom of what Minecraft can generate.
Wow.
So I was especially lucky to find this kind of landscape. And of course, I and a friend started to build a house that rests between these two halves of the mountain.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's several reasons that this is one of my favorite types of environments. Mountains, there's one word that I like to use is sublime to describe things like mountains. Sublimity is majesty. Sublimity is something larger than life, something that feels like immensely beautiful or like almost awe-inspiring, too much to handle. And it's just Minecraft. It's made of blocks. It's made of a collection of different textures of blocks. But there's something about it adding up to such a huge landscape that it's built in such a interesting yet somehow natural way that makes me feel really rewarded to climb it and explore it.
I think that mirrors real life a little bit too, because mountains are so, like, when you think about it, they are just kind of like, oh, tectonic plates or mounds of dirt. They're not. But you look at them and, like you said, sublime.
Right,
you're
right.
dwarfed by this giant creation, and it feels very, like, interesting. It is a specific feeling. So I think Minecraft is a game built on exploration and crafting and forging your own way.
Right.
So finding something that big that wasn't created by you,
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
It's
I
really
think,
cool.
Yeah.
And that you not only find your place within that sublimity, but you also, in Minecraft, you get past it. You know, you climb the mountain, you get to the top, and you start to build stuff all throughout it, and you start to like mine its most precious resources.
And craft them even.
Yes, as is the name. But yeah, that's one of my favorite locations in video games. And I don't even play Minecraft that much.
Yeah.
But I just, they got mountains right. They feel great to explore.
That's wonderful. You heard it here first, folks. Ooh, I really botched that delivery. That's all right. It's been a long day.
Yes. All right. So yeah, we gotta get through this quick. We don't have much time this time. So let's take it over to Marley.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring to you two locations at the same time. And I know that's kind of cheating, but they are related. So listeners of the show know that the Fallout series is my favorite game series of all time. So I'm talking about two games. I'm talking about Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3, and two different locations that I like for the same reasons.
Mm.
So I'm going to go through them each really briefly and why they're there, and then I'm going to talk about why I like them. So the first location is Megaton. So in Fallout 3, Megaton is the settlement that's sort of right outside Vault 101. And when you notice it, it's heavily fortified. But it looks like it's been fortified with junk, which basically it has. And what it is a town. Actually, it's a city. It's the second most densely populated area in the entire game. It's a city where basically they've built it all around this undetonated atomic bomb called a megaton from the war.
Yeah.
And the original settlers of the town were people who, when all the bombs went off in I want to say 2077, but it might be 2177 anyway. When the bombs went off, they couldn't afford to or weren't chosen to be in a vault, so they sheltered in the overhang of Vault 101. The survivors of that went on to become traders in the area and found Megaton. The group that helped them found it in exchange for basically protecting the bomb is a group of worshippers, a sort of cult-like faction that exists in multiple Fallout games called Children of the Atom. This group's really interesting. Basically, they just worship atomic substances. So there's a giant bomb in Megaton, and you have the choice either to, at any point, detonate it, or not at any point, but once you complete a quest, detonate it or disarm it. Doing different ones, affects the outcome of this town.
Yeah.
Which makes it feel very precious in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But also it's a good example of seeing the actual physical impact of this calamity that happened hundreds of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an actual outcome of war, and there's a reminder of war and how dangerous this one thing could be.
Yeah.
That's my favorite location in Fallout 3. There's over 30 different people you can talk to there. You know what? I don't know if I want to spoil what happens if you detonate or if you disarm, because it's really interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like it would have a lot of consequences.
Yeah, it really does. And something really special at Megaton is the way it looks. It really, because Fallout games a lot of it is built on this idea of ruins and people coming back to re-inhabit them.
Right.
But Megaton is something people built on their own after the fact.
Yes.
Which makes it really special to me because it feels like a land healing rather than a land trying to regain what was lost.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the Fallout series is people are stuck in the past. They listen to this old music. They're constantly, the NCR are constantly trying to reclaim in the Enclave this America of the past when really they have no idea what that was.
Right.
So Megaton to me feels like a future for the Fallout world, for the Capital Wasteland. If that makes sense. A
future even for its depiction of the future.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So the other location I'm going to talk about is Freeside from Fallout New Vegas.
Okay.
So Freeside is a portion of New Vegas, the city, but it's been sectioned off from the city of New Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So Las Vegas was mostly untouched during the war, which is actually really lucky, which is why you can actually see the famous casinos and buildings in game.
Right.
Nobody really knows why. It's Fallout. They don't explain that much. But so the area was sort of, before it was settled properly, a bunch of different people were fighting over these ruins and scavenging in it. And then Mr. House and his Securitrons, which are big parts of all the games, really, that I'm going to let you guys play because it's, I love Fallout. Basically it was like, okay, I'm going to clean up this area, but it's mine now. So he built a wall using salvage around New Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point he figured out there's a lot of undesirables, quote unquote, in this area. So he used Freeside, which is pretty much an intersection of 2 or 3 streets, as the filter zone. So he walled off further, and there's a big gate. And you have to go through Freeside to get to New Vegas.
I see.
But you can't get in unless you're a certain status, basically.
Gotcha.
So then the people left in Freeside are sort of left to be victim to things like poverty and raiders coming by
Right.
and war and fighting that if you're allowed in New Vegas, you don't have to be confronted with because it's sort of exclusive,
Right. It's sort of
wealthy.
a walled off utopia kind of
Yeah,
location.
yeah, or like another sort of like clinging to the past.
Right. Right.
What I love about Freeside is that it's a really amazing example in game of people coming together not because they have anything in common, but because they share this sort of hold on place.
Yeah.
Like this is our town.
Yeah.
Like there's actually a big conflict between the people who grew up there called the locals and then the people the NCR brought in called they call them squatters, but they're basically citizens at the NCR. They kind of follow the NCR. There's also two factions that live in Freeside. There's the Kings, which are my favorite faction of all of Fallout. If you don't know what the Kings are, they're a group of they're kind of like a gang, but they're sort of helpful. They're not dangerous. I mean, they do fight. If they don't like you, they'll kill you.
Yeah.
But they're more on the side of good in this sort of scale. If Caesar's Legion is bad, they're far, and NCR's in the middle. They're far on the good side.
Gotcha.
They settled an abandoned Elvis impersonation school, but they have no idea who Elvis is. And so they think he must have been some sort of like pre-war king.
Right.
Like, because everyone called him the king.
The king.
So their whole thing is that they imitate him exactly the way he dressed, the way he talked, his hair, because they think he's like a deity.
Yeah.
So they're run by this guy named the King, obviously. And he has this dog named Rex, a cybernetic dog, who can become your companion. He's my favorite companion. And the Kings, they like the people of Freeside. They grew up there too, so they protect the people of Freeside.
Yeah.
But they don't really do much in ways of helping them in day-to-day life.
Right.
They just kind of diffuse situations and protect them from outsiders. The other faction are the followers of the Apocalypse, which broke off from the NCR a while ago. And they're sort of like scientists and doctors, and they're more dedicated specifically to researching and doing good in that sense.
Right.
So they have a deal with the Kings where they're allowed to be in Freeside and sort of operate there, but they have to help the people by providing health care and shelter and water and whatnot. There's also the companion Arcade Gannon there. I usually don't use him as a companion, but a lot of people really like him. He's a really interesting companion. Yeah, so Freeside is theoretically kind of a boring place, but it has a ton of characters in it. It has, for me, it showcases community more than any other location because the people here have been there long enough and suffered through enough together that they feel like these are my people. It's like a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Or a small town. So that's why I really enjoy Freeside as a location. It's also hard not to side with them because they're the people New Vegas forgot. They're the people Mr. House forgot.
Yeah.
So underdogs, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also this whole sort of just this dystopian side of what should be a utopia. It's like the threshold at which you or someone from New Vegas would discover that, oh, this world is full of suffering.
Exactly, yeah. And it's full of suffering, but it's also full of people doing good.
Right.
Like the Kings and the followers of the Apocalypse. So it's almost, and this is why I like both Megaton and Freeside, because it's almost like a beacon of normality.
Yeah.
In this bizarre wasteland that you come to sort of know. And I won't say stability, but there's a whole ecosystem of life within these towns that is self-sustaining and makes sense, and these people have relationships and histories, and it feels like it's a good example of the so what happened next part of the story.
Yeah.
It's so easy in RPGs to fall into the role of a hero and not get to see it all the way the world works when you're not in it.
Right.
And I think the best way to show that, if you can't actively sort of generate fake life around you, is to, when your hero arrives, show them through story or environmental storytelling, like show them how these people might live or what they might think of each other or the fact that they've built this place. You know, it doesn't have to be procedurally generated. It doesn't have to be working in the background always. But I think this is a really great example of the developers and writers creating these self-sustained pieces of an even further future.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's kind of interesting. There's a difference in the method by which we chose each of our favorite locations here.
Yeah.
You're choosing yours based off of the story that the location tells without the main character in it. Like
Mhm.
how uh, this location functions by itself and how that can become a story for us to tell. You know, because
Mhm.
the way you're describing this location is by telling a story.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's fantastic. That's like, you know, I feel like we're around a campfire.
Yeah.
um, Meanwhile, I'm choosing, or I realize now that I chose the locations on my own list based on the feeling of you singly being there.
Uh-huh.
Um, like for example, being next to a mountain.
Yeah.
You know, there's no uh, civilization there. There's no one. Uh, there, nothing really happens if you weren't there. It's just the feeling of you being there.
Yeah, the
Um,
physical makeup of
right, right.
yeah.
Yeah, and you experiencing that is what drove my own decisions of my favorite locations. And I thought that that was just an interesting comparison
Yeah,
in our
100%. I think it
method.
reflects who we are as creators too, like the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
work we do, and it's just interesting. I think everyone reacts to games differently,
Mm-hmm.
and especially since games at the core of what they are an immersive experience,
Yes.
even at the most simple level. I think looking at how people react to that and how like different ways people enjoy games is always interesting because everyone's a little bit different.
Right.
So yeah, this is great. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that. We're
absolutely.
learning about each other too.
um, so, with that in mind, I will head to the next location on my list, which is a very different location from a giant, majestic mountain in Minecraft. Uh, this next one is the Gold Leaf Galaxy from
Ooh,
Super Mario Galaxy. Now,
luxurious.
yes, uh, there is a galaxy, the second galaxy that you visit in the game. And by the way, levels in the game are organized into galaxies, which are these like little contained worlds that contain or that hold a couple planets, and they have a couple different storylines, or some of them just have one mission. Some of them have a couple missions where you do something different with the same layout, which is really cool, and it follows from what Super Mario Sunshine did.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one that you visit is called the Honey Hive Galaxy, which is all based around bees and Mario being able to transform into Bee Mario
Oh my
so that
god.
he can hover in the air for a little bit and climb up honey surfaces. Um,
Barrio, if you will.
and much later in the game is a galaxy called the Gold Leaf Galaxy, which is a flipped autumn version of the Honey Hive Galaxy,
Oh.
except that it has different surrounding planets, and those planets are some of my favorite places to be. The whole place is designed kind of like a park.
Mm-hmm.
So one planet looks like just a hedge maze. One planet is just like this Z-shaped block of wood, and you can just walk all over it.
Yeah.
And there's a couple more wood planets. It's all like it all has a really nice crafted, just natural looking aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
Like wood carved sort of aesthetic.
I
to
love
it.
that.
Almost like this place is a giant beekeeper's park. You
Oh
know?
my god, that's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. And so the there's I can't remember the specific mission that this is. I think it's called like Cataquack to the Sky or something like that. But it involves a Cataquack, which is an enemy that has existed for a while in Mario games. That's just like this very minimalistic looking duck without a body. It's just a head and 2 feet.
Oh,
And it'll follow you around. And if it reaches you, it will use its beak to flip you up into the air.
oh my god.
And you know, this is a nuisance, but it also works to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're doing in this mission is luring these cataquacks, because they can't get enough of you, they chase you. luring them to a specific spot where they can launch you up, and uh, you can swap gravity. So it launches you up high enough that you leave the
Oh.
orbit of one planet and fall onto the next
Oh
one.
my God. I
Uh,
did when you were a kid, did you ever think like if I could jump high enough, I could get to the moon, right?
Listen, there was a time when I was young enough to say, if I look upside down too long, I'll start falling off the earth. So, uh,
Oh man. Yeah. I
um,
used to think the moon was cheese because of Wallace and Gromit. So here we go.
um, anyway, I wanted to just to give you an idea, since I'm talking all about the feeling of being in the presence of this world. I wanted
Yeah.
to give you an idea of being there. So, let me see if I can find the music. I
Oh, we'll do a
think
little
this is-
tunes,
Yeah,
little
yeah.
mid-episode tunes.
Let's see if this works. Yeah. So this is the sound of being in
Being.
either the honey hive or the gold leaf galaxy.
Yeah. Feel ready to wax poetic about it.
uh, the cool thing about this is, so there's this music, and then there's supposed to be, an ambiance to it, right? You're in space. The weird thing about these galaxies is that there are clouds all around. The sky is kind of blue, and there's still space. It's still within the endless void of space.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost like these planets have this atmosphere around them. Just blue sky, clouds, and like this very faint wind. It's extremely faint. It's almost just the buzz of air.
Oh, it's like adding room tone in to make you feel like you're not listening to a studio. You're listening to a room.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It feels like more intimate that way. And that combined with this music and you just standing there on this turn it down a little. You just standing there on this Z-shaped wooden platform with nothing else to do but just like take it in.
Mm-hmm.
Very little information for you to take in. It's a cozy feeling. That's what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. It's cozy to be there.
I think one of the things I like most about Nintendo, mostly with Mario games, they do a great job, is how tactile they look
Yeah,
and feel. Is that a feeling you get from this
absolutely.
world?
Yeah. I mean, all
Yeah.
these planets are made of like hand-carved wood.
Oh
and
my
it
God,
really
yeah.
looks like that. Yeah. But yeah, it's a tactile experience,
Mhm.
and in this situation, it's cozy. It feels just nice to be there and have nothing else to do but have one path forward.
Wow, yeah.
Sometimes that's all you can ask.
Sometimes it's just what you want life to give you.
But anyway, also it has an amazing color scheme. I love autumn colors.
Oh, me
so,
too. Oh man, I
Gold
wish.
Leaf Galaxy, well done.
Well done. I wish we had like actual fall in California. It's just like, oh man, growing up here, there's no weather. It's the same year round. I
Yeah.
wish we had falling leaves and autumn colors. But anyway, thank you, Gold Leaf Galaxy.
Yes.
Well, so my second one is very different from my first two and very different from the one Scruffy brought in. It's Raccoon City Police Station from the Resident Evil games.
Ooh.
I chose this because I hate this building.
Interesting.
I actually really like
Marley,
it.
that was not the prompt.
You're going off script. No, I like it because it makes no sense. And I also like it because instead of being like, it doesn't make sense because we're a video game, deal with it, they said, no. I got this. I will explain it.
Ooh.
And they came up with the worst explanation ever.
Oh my goodness.
Which is, and get ready for this, the Raccoon City Police Department purchased an old art museum because it had better parking. That is the explanation.
Really?
So they purchased this terrifying building. If you've played Resident Evil 2 or the remake, it's scary, even if it's not dark. And I'll get into a little bit of why that's the case and why I think it's complete nonsense, but also why I think it functions super well in the context of the game that you're playing. and why I wish there were more game locations like this.
Yeah.
Because it's completely unique. It's not apologizing for being a vessel purely for gameplay, but it's also just kind of a little bit, it unintentionally adds some personality into the city that you don't get to know at all before
Yeah.
it's destroyed.
Yeah.
So I'll go over this. So in 1969, Raccoon City Police Department purchased this old art museum. And in September 1998, the G virus/T virus was spread throughout the city via water and rat contamination. I'm not going to go into that too much because the plot is very complicated. And also, I think people should play the remake because it's a great game.
Yeah.
It came out in 1998. Don't yell at me for spoilers. So just prior to this outbreak happening, the corrupt chief of police, Chief Irons, went a little wonky, is what I wrote in my notes.
A little wonky.
A little wonky. And he ordered all of the ammunition and weapons in the police station to be scattered around the station in various rooms.
Oh my.
Which is why pretty much all the police officers died.
Okay.
That's the reason, and that's the reason it was so easy to penetrate despite being the evacuation center for all the citizens. So that's why when Leon arrives, he has to go through, or you know what, and Claire, technically.
Yeah.
But, like, you have to go through so many useless tunnels and solve all these clues and stuff is because that kind of happened. And they allude to it. I don't actually know if, I think the same thing happens when you're playing with Claire, but they allude to it when you find a certain character and he talks about it.
Gotcha. I was just going to assume that was to explain how there are all sorts of random ammo and gun pickups all throughout the game.
Because they spread them out?
Right. I thought that was going to be an explanation.
Wrong. That is the solution to this nonsensical explanation.
Yes.
So, but yeah, you're right. There's like, you'll find ammo in the funniest places. Like you'll be there'll be some in the bathroom and you're like, cool. This is a normal and chill thing for one to do. But anyway, I like the idea that you're coming into a building that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why it makes no sense, but it's probably better you don't think about it.
Right.
So the only surviving citizens that get out of the police department are the main characters of the game. So college student Claire Redfield, rookie police officer Leon Kennedy, spy Ada Wong, and a child named Sherry Birkin. I would go over all of their sort of roles in this if I had the time, but I don't really. But this game is really worth playing. So, again, it was chosen for a convenient location, the fact that it had, and I quote, ample parking, which makes me very upset because
that's almost satirical.
It's almost satirical. That's the thing. Like, but this is the case with a lot of Resident Evil games because there's such a good blend of like campy ridiculousness, and genuine scary stuff, and then also characters you do get attached to.
That's a horror film.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And I think Resident Evil 2 is a really good blend of all those things. I think it's a little more, it takes itself a little more seriously than the other Resident Evils tend to.
Yeah.
Because its villains aren't as sort of theatrical. It still kind of has a more human plot than the other ones.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing about this police station is that it used to be an art museum, and it seems like they never got rid of the art. So there's paintings, there's like jewels.
Of course.
There's giant statues. There's like puzzles where you need medallions. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, forget the fact that you're doing this while being chased by zombies. Excuse me, I had to do a little cough. And forget that it's nighttime, and forget that it's either your first day or you're literally just a college student on break. Forget any of that. If you were a police officer or a secretary or someone and you're just trying to find a bathroom, like, how frustrating would this building be?
I know.
Like,
holy cow.
Okay, you can use the restroom, you just need this medallion, and this set of combinations so you can find the other medallion, and only then will you unlock the hallway that then leads to another room with a medallion.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, and
So they tried to bag this all under the uh the commission, or who was it that just went insane?
Chief Irons.
The chief. The chief of police just went insane and turned his building into a maze.
Into a maze, into a hellscape. Yeah.
Wow.
My question though for you, Chief Irons, is first of all, why did you get hired? Like, excuse me, but second of all, why would you even have the option of opening any of these secret tunnels?
Yeah.
So I think it's really funny, and I think especially in the remake they didn't shy away from the fact that it is funny. Like if you have to pick up notes and stuff from the people who were there before they died, so police officers, citizens, members of STARS, you have to pick those notes up in order to find ways to get out.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are really infused with humor because you have to think like how it's almost comical. I mean, it is comical. It's
Yeah.
very funny.
Yeah.
So you'll find notes that'll be like, I don't know why anyone would store this in a room with blank. Why would I have to? And there's a part where you have to go into like a clock tower. It gets really absurd.
Yeah.
But they do a really good job acknowledging that it's really scary and this game is supposed to be serious, but not losing the sort of campiness and ridiculousness that is a Resident Evil game.
Right, right.
So I think the police station sort of perfectly embodies that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this perfect embodiment of the horror movie trope of some ridiculous, satirical, like, non sequitur reason that you're forced into all of this
Exactly.
horrific
Like,
content.
why me? Well, because you purchased an art museum in 1969 because it had ample parking.
Yes.
One last sort of funny thing I'll say is that, and this line is very funny, for no discernible reason, when they did the remake, they retconned that they had bought the art museum in 1980 and changed it to 1969. It
Huh.
has no impact on the gameplay, and the game is still set in 1998.
Weird.
Yeah, I have no idea why they did that, but I think it's my favorite line of trivia because it's just like, yeah, we give up. The people writing this wiki site are like, yeah, you know what? Like, screw it. They did this because they wanted to,
Yeah.
and that's Resident Evil.
I guess so. First reason that comes to mind is maybe the art museum was designed in a way that was more popular in the late 60s than the
Yeah.
80s. I
Well,
don't
it's
know.
kind of Baroque. It's almost like
Is it a classic art museum? Or?
yes.
Okay.
So it's like, imagine a Batman movie directed by David Lynch, a set piece of City Hall for Gotham City.
Oh, okay.
That's what it, for me, that's what it looks like.
Gotcha. Okay.
It also kind of looks like a Hitman level. But we can move on from this. But anyway, I love the Raccoon City Police Station. I think it perfectly embodies how ridiculous,
yes.
but also how genuinely scary and funny and interesting Resident Evil games can be.
And how you can manage to sneak some ridiculous, like, just campy stuff into your otherwise very serious, scary game.
Yeah, absolutely. There may be a giant, terrifying man in a trench coat chasing you who could snap you in half, but it is very funny.
Yes.
It is very funny. All right.
Okay. I think this is going to end up being my last on my list.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go over a game that kind of toes the line very well between having cozy environments and having sublime environments.
Oh,
That, for me, is a game called Abzu,
yes.
which was... Hang on. I should know this. Abzu was created by Giant Squid.
Wow, a
company
giant squid made that game?
Yeah,
That's
giant-
impressive.
Oh, my goodness. Giant Squid Studios made that game. It's all about a diver exploring the ocean. That's
Mhm.
essentially what it is. There is a narrative. It's entirely wordless. And it's pretty simple, yet I don't want to go too far into it
Yeah.
because, like, I want the game to tell this story.
Yeah.
That I absolutely recommend that. This game
Uh-huh.
is an experience. with a beautiful soundtrack by Austin Wintory, and it portrays the ocean uh, in a scope and in a light that I have not really seen in a game before.
Mhm.
So by scope, I mean there are hundreds, sometimes thousands of fish swimming around in one particular area.
Oh, and it looks
Um,
so beautiful.
yeah, it'll have schools of fish. None of them, getting a little technical here, none of them have uh, rigs to animate them with. They're all animated mathematically
Oh,
via
wow.
just calculations that allow them to swim kind of like naturally.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and
It
then
makes
another
sense.
algorithm to have them swim away if you swim into a school of fish, which is amazing. So they can have like thousands of these fish of real species, even though most of them don't exist in one spot together.
Mhm.
um, they have thousands of these fish swimming around at once, and then you're swimming around with them. There are locations where you can meditate and just like watch the fish behave, watch some fish eat
Yeah.
smaller fish. And then there are moments where you can add species to this environment and just
Mhm.
increase the diversity of the area. Um, and I don't really have any particular location that is my favorite in this game. I just enjoy every depiction of the ocean here. You start in a very shallow intertidal region.
Mhm.
That's the more of the cozy part, and it does take you through like different rooms of the ocean where
Yeah.
there's kelp along the
Oh,
ceiling
love it.
and just like coral or rock cliffs that are defining this room. But eventually the rooms get larger, and eventually there's a point where you can't see the other wall. It's just like
Yeah.
open ocean,
It's just
and
beautiful.
it's scary. But at
Yeah.
that point, it's scary because it's sublime. It gets to the
Uh-huh.
point where the ocean is just as frighteningly large as you'd imagine. There is a point where you're swimming with whales,
Oh, yeah, I
and
remember this point.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is a that is a hauntingly beautiful moment for
Yeah.
me. And it's like it's a very cinematic game. You go down all the way to the abyss. There's like there's breathtaking distances that you end up swimming in this
Mhm.
game. Like I can't believe how much ground you cover.
Yeah.
It's insane. Um, but that's what I really love about this depiction of the ocean, and everything is lit so well. It's a
Yeah.
uh, beautiful take on colors and how to color a scene, how to color an underwater scene, especially. Um, highly recommend it, especially if you could get the. Let's see, it's available on Steam. It's also available on PS4.
Mhm.
Just crank it as HD as you can
Yeah.
afford. It's a wonderful experience.
It's a beautiful game. I think it's hard for games to depict nature in a way that isn't either like kind of blandly from photographs or video or
Mm,
isn't like cloying and like trying to say something.
true,
And I
true.
think
Well,
Abzu really succeeds in that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think the game Everything also seems like it does.
yeah.
Because nature is really special and wonderful and it's terrifying.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
So,
think um, there are innovations that I've been seeing in like Unreal Engine that
oh
are
yeah.
allowing it to, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, Abzu was made in Unreal as well.
Oh, that you know what that makes sense. Yeah.
But I think we're getting closer to a point where we can start to capture the profundity or profound uh, nature, just
Yeah.
and like its sublimity and its sometimes coziness.
I
I think
think
we're getting better at that.
yeah, I think we reach a point in any art form where you have all the skills you need, where you can now focus on like you have all the technical advancements you need where you can now focus on the emotions of what you're making.
Yeah,
And I think that's one of the hardest things to capture
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's kind of wordless and nameless. I mean, Sublime is perfect, I think, because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of undescribable, indescribable. So,
And I will punctuate that by saying that I am not done talking about Abzu and
yes.
its relation to sublimity. I
Yeah,
will be bringing that up again because I have quite a bit to say about that game.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, that's my final favorite location.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to do with this is we're going to probably come back to this topic
Yeah.
Today was, again, it's unusual. We usually start 15, 20 minutes earlier than we did.
Yeah.
So tune back in next Friday. You'll hear us speak.
Yes.
And then sometimes we come in at different days. So thank you for tuning in.
Yeah. We'll keep you in the know
We
about
will.
our schedule.
We will indeed. Thanks for listening. And we don't really have a sign off, do we?
No, we don't. Although we could play some music.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's see here. How about something from Abzu?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Play it again,
just
Johnny
listen to this.
Guitar.